man, Barrington. Long time, man. It's great catching up with you, brother.
Same here, man. I have to say you were one of my favorite guys that I played with, and I'm happy that we didn't only graduate in the same class, but we were able to spend a lot of football time together over the course of the years over at USF.
Favorite guys. That's shocking to me, man, because you used to hit me like you hated me.
Nah, but you know what? It was your personality. And you were always unapologetically yourself. And you don't see that at a young age. You see so many guys, trying to find out who they are. And so, one year they're this guy, this year they got a different crazy haircut and they're dressing one way. And Jeff was always Jeff. And so, that was one of the things I appreciated about you. And then lining up across from you, you weren't a small guy. And so it was a test every time. And so I tried to, I always brought the heat because that was the only choice I had. That was it.
Definitely. Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely did, man. I remember one time you rang my bell pretty good at Vero Beach. I don't know if you remember it because I tried to walk it off and play it off, man. But I remember my ears were ringing and I was like, if I pull myself out right now, I'm not going to have a shot to play for the rest of the season because Vero Beach, that 2-a-days was like serious nut cutting time. So if you bailed out then, it was like you might as well kiss the field goodbye unless someone gets blown out. But yeah, man.
Yeah.
The thing I remember, I appreciate what you said about me too, man. And it's funny that you viewed me from the outside like that. Because on the inside in college, man, I had no idea like what was going on. I felt like I had a pretty good bead on who I was, but since becoming a husband and since becoming a father and stuff like that, I feel like I've been, uh, growing and maturing into my own man in a bunch of different ways. I'm sure, you can relate to your own life experiences as well.
Yeah. You know what? We spend all this time kind of creating this grand plan on what our life will be. And then life humbles you whatever way. And then, at the end of the day, you find yourself being right where you need to be at all times. And so, like I said, it was just a joy playing with you. And, there's a lot of guys that I appreciate playing with, but you were one of the guys that definitely stood out. And it was guys who you could tell they gravitated towards you too. So, here we are 10 years later, well, here, 9 years later from our graduation year. And life does go by fast. Like you said, you tend to, and now you got the responsibility of a home and, a family, and now a career. The stakes are higher, but football always finds a way to prep you for life after football. And that's one of the things that I always try to tell young guys now is just understand the character trait. And I know we'll get into this, but guys just have to understand the art of concepts. Football is about concepts. When I left Green Bay, cover two was the same thing in Kansas City. They just called the concept something different. And so, here we are leaving football and we're professionals now. Hard work is still hard work. Integrity is still integrity. Trust is still trust. It's just called something different because now you're in a different playing field. You're in a different arena. And so if guys can just learn to do those things well in football, when you finish and you move on from football, you'll do them well and you'll find success outside of football.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good point. When did you feel like you first fell in love with football? Like how did you get started playing?
Yeah, so I remember it like it was yesterday. So I grew up in uh, an apartment, when I was able to start asking my mom, can I go outside and play? I was living in an apartment complex. And that apartment complex, man, every apartment there had to have a kid in it, ranging from ages, obviously 0 to 18. And I'm talking about maybe it was 400 apartments in this apartment complex. And so we never, it was never a time where we went outside and there weren't 30 kids running around, either playing hide and go seek, playing tag, and then it was football. And so there was always an object. I mean, we'd play with a kitchen cup. We'd play with a shoe. We'd play with a hat. We'd play with anything, a basketball. And that's where it started. And I'm gonna just tell you, it was times where if they were picking teams and it was an odd amount of guys, I didn't get picked because I didn't know how to catch. And
only
and
dude
and I,
making it to the league.
it's a true story, man. I didn't get picked sometimes. And I have a brother who's a year younger than me, and I'm 6'1", and he's 5'7", but he was really tough, and he used to get picked before I did. And over the years, obviously, I continued to grow and continue to get better as an athlete. But that's when it started. And then the Boys and Girls Club up the street, one day they put a sign out that said, signing up for football. And we literally went home to our mom and asked her, could she sign us up for football? And so we played, it was my third grade year and my fourth grade year. I played Pop Warner football. And then fifth and sixth grade, we just played sandlot football. And then I played again in seventh and eighth grade. And then from seventh and eighth grade, I played school ball all the way up until college. But I think, man, I developed outside of my 10th and 11th grade years, I developed most of my game playing sandlot football, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fully believe it. I remember back in the day, that's kind of how I got into it as well, was filling up. It was so funny because it was like, I was talking to my wife about this earlier. My parents were constantly trying to push me towards baseball, and it was
Yeah.
baseball, baseball, baseball. Because my mom had been a nurse her whole life, or her whole professional life, and had kind of seen some injuries come through with football that she didn't want me to be a part of, which is funny how it ended up playing out. But, you know, uh, she was adamant about me not playing. So any chance I got, me and my buddies, it's funny because it was a similar apartment complex, probably a lot smaller than yours. There's only like 10 or 12 kids. So we were always, I never not got picked because I was like a giant compared to the rest of the kids. But I used to get run over by 16-year-olds all the time. But we used to
Yeah.
play with a little Gatorade bottle filled with sand and stuff, man. And it's funny how that love and that passion for the sport kind of grows when you're a kid. And then, as your physical body develops, like playing in high school is so wild. Like you could really see the kids that are super, super passionate, and they've been doing this regardless of circumstance or outcomes. Like it's a beautiful game in that way, in that respect, definitely.
Yeah. And it was the same thing for me. And to be honest with you, when I was in eighth grade, I was actually a better basketball player than I was a football player, and I was really good at football. But at eighth grade, I was going to play basketball with high schoolers and grown men at the city park. And so going into the ninth grade, I was already dunking. But I developed a syndrome in my knees called Osgood-Schlatter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people know about that. Some people refer to it as jumper's knee, but my knees were always really tender. And then one day, my mom took me to see a therapist, and the therapist told me, he said, "Hey Sam, you can play basketball. It's always going to hurt. Okay, you're always going to have this pain." And I tried the little black straps. That I still had the pain. And he said, "You can all you're gonna have this pain." He said, "But if you play football, the pain, you won't have as much pain because you're running in the grass." So I said, I'm just gonna lie, left basketball behind and started to focus on football.
I think that might be the first doctor in the history of, can you hear me now? I was going to say, I think that might be the first doctor in the
Yeah,
history of human beings to ever recommend football over basketball for any reason. That's got to be first.
yeah, and it was a true story, and that's how it panned out. And I left it. I remember just making. I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm leaving basketball behind."
You mentioned that you talked to your mom and you said you started back in third or fourth grade. It, I'm not too familiar with your family situation or your home right now. Do you have kids?
Yeah, so I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter.
Beautiful. Okay,
Yeah.
so this question might not super apply to them. It might, but
Yeah.
if you were to have a boy, what age would you consider letting him play football, if at all? Because
I mean,
I've heard some people, some actual former pros that are like, no shot, not going to happen.
yeah, I mean, I get it. I get your reasoning. Um, but I throw my son in there as early as he can walk.
Nice.
I throw him in there as early as he can walk, and that's just because I love the game. I don't love the game enough for me to want to play the game anymore, but I still love the game, and I think of whatever. It's just there's so much that I gain from the game, and there's so much knowledge, and I'd like to give my son a shot at taking this knowledge that his father has and applying it and see if he can make it work for himself. Now, if he doesn't want to play, I'm not going to force him to play. If he
Hmm.
wants to play, I'm not going to be, you get what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell him that
Absolutely.
he can't. Because what if my son decides that he wants to go be a cheerleader, or he wants to be in band, or he wants to do yoga, or he wants to fly airplanes? I don't want to be the individual that's standing in between, my son and his dreams. I think what's most important as a parent is to give your child options and just to let them know, hey, if you go this route, this is what you might run into. There's a history of X, Y, and Z in this industry. And so you just want to be cognizant of these things as you move forward. So, I love the game. As soon as he can walk, I'm going to put him out there. I'm going to push him down. And when he's running, I'm going to put my foot out and trip him. You get what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
just,
for
that's
sure.
just, but I can't do that to my daughters. My oldest daughter, she's actually, at 11 years old, she's already an All-American in track, and she's an All-American in the 400 and long jump.
What?
And she just became an All-American in 2020 of December, and I'm sorry, in November 2020 over in Georgia.
What? That's
Yeah.
insane. Already an All-American at 11 years old. What is she like, breaking records and such?
So she placed in the top 8 in the country in her event, in her age group, and
What?
she's 5'7" and she's 11 years old.
So she's got blazing speed then. That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah,
It's funny, man. Every time football's on, like last night we were watching, and this is probably going to date this podcast a little bit. I usually release these about a week after I do them, but watching the Bucks game last night, and my daughter, she's only like 4 or 5 months old, and we try and keep her, off screen time for as much as we possibly can throughout the day and keep her active and stuff. But as soon as a football game comes on, man, she is locked in.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think it might be because she likes the color green, but we put her in a little jumper, man, and anyone catches the ball, she's in there like,
yeah.
she's got the
And
bug, bro.
it's just a great game for so many reasons. So again, to reiterate, I'm not one of those parents that's going to tell my son he can't play football. Now, in hindsight, um, I'm very much an advocate for academics. So obviously, academia will come first. But for as far as sports, I'm not going to keep him away from any sports. Even if he wants to box, he can go right ahead.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
beautiful. That's probably the most eloquent way I've heard it said. It's just let them do what they want, focus on academics, put that as a priority. And then if you want to go do whatever you want to go be an MMA fighter, go do your thing, kid.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so what you mentioned a lot of the qualities that you got out of football. What, in your opinion, was the most important thing that you learned from the game?
I think Jeff, I think that's a great question. Um, the game is perseverance. Um, and somebody can say like, well, Sam, why is it perseverance when you're a guy who, you were a starter on every level, um, and you have so many off the field accolades and et cetera, et cetera. But there's the silent battles that nobody knows about that as a player you're taught to suppress. That you walk in the locker room carrying it on your shoulders, and when you come in, you got to be prepared to go. And so, being a small business owner and here being in this is actually this later this year to be year 4. It's perseverance because it's days when I walk in here and in my office and uh, I don't want to be here. Or it's days when I'm asking myself, saying, why are you doing this? And, once you develop a why, um, and you attach the skill to persevere to it, you can get a lot done. And so I think it's perseverance, and it's the thing that I think I'd use on a daily basis, amongst the many great quality and character traits that you develop while you're playing the game of football.
So besides sports, like you mentioned that you played a lot of basketball, and besides football, did you have any interests that would like shock people to know? Like I've had people tell me they played chess. I've had people like anything growing up that you did that was outside the box or anything like that.
No, I honestly believe, and I'm so happy. I thank my parents for this because, I was an all-American kid. I guess whatever that is, right? But, from the time I was, like I said, in kindergarten up until, me and my brother, who was a year younger than me, we were outside, we rode bikes, we rode scooters, we rode skateboards, we had basketball goals, we had trampolines. And then my family from the time I was in seventh grade up until I graduated high school, we had some tough times, but it was football that I was able to stick to, and I ran track and actually ran hurdles, and I threw the discus in track. And I played basketball, but I was just into sports my whole life. And aside from sports, I was doing like my entrepreneurial stuff. So I was the kid that was selling candy. I was the kid who bought his own car when he was in eighth grade for $500, and the car didn't have any brakes. And so I would take all the back streets to wherever I had to go, and I would have to pump the brake. I would have to pump the pedal about 15 times for the car to stop. So,
What kind of car was this?
oh man, it was a Pontiac J2000. It was a 1973 Pontiac J2000.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
so wild.
yeah, that
Eighth
was my.
grade, and you're whipping this thing through the back streets. Did you go pick up any friends with it?
Of course, I was picking my boys up, man, and that was a nice little car. It just didn't have any brakes.
Yeah,
So, but
whatever.
it was a cool car, man, and it was mine. Because I was cutting grass and selling candy, and I used that money to purchase the car. So, yeah. But
That's some
other than that,
serious discipline. Save
yeah,
$500 as an eighth grader.
man, I was selling candy. I was making $40 a day sometimes. Yeah.
What was your
And
best
this,
seller?
well, it was seasonal. Because in the winter, everybody. This is true though. In in the winter, think about it though. Think about it. In the winter, everybody wanted to buy chocolate,
Right.
right? But if you try to sell Skittles and Starbursts in the winter, they get real hard because it's cold. So in
Yes.
so in the summer, chocolate melts, but Skittles and Starbursts, they're chewy, it's fruit. That's
That's
so
one of the
that.
most like, where did you get I might be skipping ahead, but whatever, man, just to continue this conversation, where did you get this entrepreneurial kick to you? Like I never had it. I was the idiot buying the Starburst constantly, my chubby self. Like, where did
Yeah.
you get this from?
Well, so I honestly believe, you take parts of you take your parents' character traits and stuff like that. And my dad's a serial entrepreneur, right?
Hmm.
And over in Africa, and he's done well in business for a number of times. And so he was living over in Africa, developing business, becoming an entrepreneur. And I didn't grow up under the same roof as him, but here I am developing some entrepreneurial traits. And so I think that's where it came from. And I was just destined to be this guy. And once I start spending more time around my father, I saw some of the things that he's done and developed for himself. I realized that now it's time to take onus, and because it's about perpetuating greatness at this point. And it was no longer just an accidental, coincidental thing. It was now like, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So,
That's beautiful, man.
yeah.
So go kind of stemming back to the athletic discussion, do you feel like you accomplished everything that you wanted to with your athletic career?
Uh, to be honest with you, yeah, yeah. Um, I honestly do, man. When I Jeff, a lot of people don't remember this. With all the things that I've accomplished now, a lot of people don't remember. I got arrested 3 times while I was at USF.
Mm-hmm. I
A lot of
remember. I
people,
remember the two-a-days one. I didn't want to. I'm not gonna. That's your business.
yeah. No, I think, and I proudly talk about it now, because I mean, I was young and dumb back then, and it was never anything malicious. It just, I didn't have my priorities straight. You get what I'm saying? It was driving with a suspended license multiple times. That's why I got arrested. Um, and it's
Bro,
so
I
many.
I drove on a suspended license. Kalen Hall's probably listening to this right now, bro. Take it easy. This was back in 2012. I had a
Yeah,
suspended license for like 6 months and never got pulled over. And then one day,
yeah,
my mom was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "This expired like 6 months ago." And I was like, "What?" And I remember
yeah.
you're in your situation, and I was like, they could like come and arrest my ass for this. I was like, "This is madness." So
So,
I'm right there with
in a
you.
nutshell, yeah. I mean, I had got a ticket on campus and didn't pay it. I was sending money back home for my kid and my mom, and I didn't pay it. And I was literally driving on 275 to go speak at a kids home, and I got pulled over. And when I got pulled over, they just took my car and they took me to jail. And one of my teammates at the time, Saki, bonded me out. And so when he bonded me out, uh, they set me a court date. Well, before the court date, I didn't go clean my license up. Had I cleaned my license up when I came to court, the judge would have just, dropped all the charges, gave me a court cost, and sent me home. Well, so when I left camp that time and I went to court, she said, "So, Mr. Barrington, did you get your license straight?" And I said, "No, ma'am. I'm a college student. I'm in football camp." And she didn't even let me finish. And she said, "See the bailiff." And she put me in jail for 2 days. And so, I say all that to say, I came to USF. I had over 40 scholarship offers coming to USF. Um, I played a ton of football for USF. We won some great games at USF. Um, and then I got drafted in the NFL, which was a dream of mine. And I played some good football for the Packers, and I did some tremendous things off the field. I was never the guy that said, "You know what, I just want to be the best player that I could be." And I know that I gave it my all. When it was time to train, I gave it my all. And everybody makes a few small mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. But I gave it my all. I was never the guy that came in and said, "Yeah, I got to make it to the Pro Bowl," or "I got to go win the Super Bowl." Man, I played some great football, and you just got to let the chips fall where they may sometimes. And I think some guys, obviously, you want to set your dreams really high, but you got to know what the stake. You got to know what stakes you're going up against. Rarely do guys make it to the Pro Bowl when you look at the statistics. Rarely do guys make it to the Super Bowl when you look at the statistics. Rarely do guys get 5 years in the NFL. So I played with some Hall of Famers. I earned the respect of some Hall of Famers. I played 5 years in the NFL. I made enough money to transition into my next career. And so as an athlete, when it was, think I'm lying sometimes, but I do not miss playing. And I
I
had my
saw
fun and I moved on.
I saw that post
Yeah.
on Twitter, and I was like, because it was before I had gotten in touch with you to do the interview, but it just seemed like, because I quoted whatever. I'm still learning Twitter or whatever, but I just felt like that was a message that doesn't get said a lot. Is that right now when I watch football, I rarely ever have the urge to put the pads back on and go get hit in my head again. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love being a fan and just watching the game and enjoying and celebrating like the success of like others and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I connected with that. As soon as you said that, I was like, damn, I was like, he's got his legs are
Yeah.
shot too.
Hey, and I tell you what, while I was in the NFL, I pulled my hamstring like 6 or 7 times.
That's a nightmare.
And so that pretty much did it for me, along with my ankle injury, some of the Colin Kaepernick stuff that was going on. And so it was just time for me to move on. And like I said, I had a lot of fun, and I just wanted to leave the game on my terms. And I knew that going in, whenever it was time, it was going to happen on my terms. And I wasn't just going to be the guy hanging on by a limb, begging to get back in the NFL. So,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is what was the decision to retire? But it sounds like that it was a voluntary decision. It wasn't that, it had been like, people telling you like, hey, you're done or anything like that. It was a chance for Sam Barrington to say, I played, I came, I saw, I got the ticket, I did the thing. So now
yeah,
it's just time to, now it's time to bounce into my new career. So
yeah.
how much, this is kind of a more of a deeper kind of philosophical question I like to ask everyone that comes on the show. How much do you feel like your self identity was tied into being an athlete? Because I know that you mentioned like your whole life, like if it wasn't academics or it wasn't going to school, it was playing sports. So to
Yeah.
you, like how much of your self identity, and even to a certain extent, how much of your self confidence was wrapped up in being an athlete?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question. And I think see me, I've always branded myself outside of the game. I've always branded myself outside of the game. I mean, and it kind of started when I was a senior in high school, and I was getting a lot of notoriety around the city. And so I was getting some off the field awards, et cetera, et cetera. And so that played into some benefits for me. But then I was a freshman in college, and I went to Ghana to visit my dad, and then the school did an article on me, and then it was popular. Every year I just found opportunities to not only brand myself outside of football, but use my status to create relationships and walk in rooms that the normal 20-year-old wouldn't even be able to walk in, right? And so I took that same mentality. And when I got to the NFL, I mean, it was one year where I was on a plane every weekend to go receive an award or shake someone's hand. And so I started to separate. It was two Sam Barrington. There was the player and there was the brand. And I just realized that this brand is going to follow me wherever I go. So a ton of my confidence came from football. But again, it's about taking those transferable character traits and taking them with you and putting them in your backpack and taking them wherever you go. And, there's, it's sad how many guys, and I would always say football doesn't decline me. I'm sorry, football doesn't define me. It inclines me. You get what I'm saying? I'm more, I mean, my status is inclined because I play football, but football doesn't define me as the person who I am. And I would tell some of my boys, I would just be like, man, I'm not really a football player. I'm just a businessman who happens to be really athletic. You get what I'm saying? And so you got to find who you are outside the game. And I think, to go back to your question earlier, if I'm letting my son play ball, if my son ever struggles to define who he is outside the game, I'll pull him away from the game. And what that struggle looks like is getting in trouble, right? Because if you're getting in trouble, that means you don't cherish the person, and you don't cherish your name. You take it just as just as important as you did as you take the game. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
Any advice that I would give to a young man would just find out who you are when you're off this field. And I think the dangerous thing about football, especially in today's climate, is everybody wants to be the best player. Everybody has this, if you don't grind, you don't eat mentality, which is important, but you can't and this is why guys move on from the game, and it's like postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you suffer a level of institutionalism because you consume one thing an overwhelming amount of time.
Mm.
And you just have to find other things to put yourself to. I mean, when I was in college, you know, it was little modeling shows on campus that I would go to. It was jazz shows around Tampa that I would go to. Just stuff that just set me apart. And like even dressing up for class every day, I didn't just wear the football shirt, the shorts, and some. I dressed up because it was an opportunity for me to go be a student.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, that's my spiel on that. I think it's a certain level of attention to detail that you have to pay to define who you are outside the game. And if you don't, it could be catastrophic to your transition process.
That right there is a golden tip for any young athlete that's out there listening. If you notice yourself getting in trouble at school, it's more than likely, I 100% agree with you. I've just never looked at it this way until you said it like that, that you've poured too much of yourself and your self-worth and your identity and your confidence into the game of football or whatever game you're playing. And now you've become outside of yourself. You've lost balance. That's what getting older in this life, and I'm sure you can attest to this, man, is you get to that point where you understand that the way that this world works and the way that you're going to make yourself happy is it's going to take a number of things. There's no one thing. If I leaned on my wife for all my happiness, if I leaned on my daughter for all my happiness or anyone outside of me, instead of building, the foundation and having like I said, like a balance, like mental, physical, spiritual, everything working in concert together, that's how you start to, level up at least yourself. What I found in this success, this, small or whatever success that I've had in my life, that's where I've gotten it from. So I think what you said, man, was just knocking it out of the park.
And you know what else, Jeff? I think we come from a culture, right, where a lot of kids were sent to school to learn everything. And there's a certain level of spiritual, mental, and emotional wellness that school teachers and coaches shouldn't be responsible for teaching the child. That stuff should be taught to a child at home.
Mm.
Spiritual, emotional, mental wellness and balance. That's the stuff that helps guys transition from football. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But and again, and especially guys that come from single family homes, they don't have anyone that's taking the time to walk them through these things. When something's pissing you off, can you talk about it? Can you talk about it in a way where you're not just blurting out words, but you're talking about it with the hope to find a solution to why you're pissed off?
Mm.
And a lot of guys only learned how to deal with anger in football. You look at Antonio Brown in an interview that he had, and I can't remember who it was. And here he is, 34, 35-year-old man, I'm sorry, maybe 32 or 32-year-old man saying that he used football to take his anger out. And so for me, that was disturbing because at 32 years of age, and this is not an indictment on Antonio Brown, but at 32 years of age, you should have your emotional intelligence figured out by now, right? Hopefully. And everybody was just looking at him, hopefully, and everybody was just looking at him like, this guy's a bad guy. He doesn't care. But all he was a guy who didn't have his emotional intelligence figured out yet. And as a result of that, he made very brash decisions. He lashed out and he blew a lot of money.
Yeah. That's insane to think about.
So before I tell my son that he can't play football, I'm telling my son, hey, it's imperative that you focus on emotional intelligence. It's imperative that you understand how to problem solve. Because these are the things that if guys can do and if guys can do well, when it's time to transition from the game, they're going to realize that there's another life out here because I've been doing these things all my life. And the thing is, you look at the economy in America, right? Don't get me wrong, the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, is I want to say I don't have the number, maybe a $50 billion industry or something of the sort. I'm not totally sure. Okay. If you look at how much total equity of wealth that has in America, it's a peanut.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's other sectors and industries that guys can get into. And again, you talk about business development. There's no office that a guy who played college football, especially in Tampa, can't walk into if he played football at the University of South Florida, right? Especially a community that supports the Bulls and that supports young student athletes.
Definitely. That's a good thing to hear for these young guys too, man. Especially, I think the most important time, if a lot of what you said is involving from, like you said, your son early on, getting him to understand these levels of emotional intelligence and then grow and then, really handle the game and keep it in perspective. But that year, like you said, that postpartum year right after football ends, getting guys to believe, like this is a whole reason I started the show, is getting people to believe that there was something that they can do that was going to be fulfilling for them outside of football. And it's probably not going to be just one thing. It's probably going to be a consortment of things. I love doing yoga, I love lifting weights, I love doing music, I love making a podcast. You know what I mean? Like, do
Yeah.
everything, try everything, like enjoy yourself. And like you said, continue to grow that emotional intelligence level for certain. So next question is kind of getting out of retirement. Did you have a plan? Like, did you know that you were going to go, and I don't know if you purchased a company beforehand or you started from the ground up or how that worked with your construction company, but did you know that was the route that you were going to go when football was done?
What I did know is I didn't want to work for anyone again. That's the one thing that I definitely knew. And I don't talk about this often because I think guys always try to create a reason why their career can't ended, right? But I'll speak on it and I'll tell you, 6 days after I tweeted that I support Colin Kaepernick and his decision to kneel for some of the things that was going on in America, I was released by the Green Bay Packers. And that was within a year of me being awarded the Walter Payton Man of the Year, the Byron Wizard Award, the President's Volunteer Service Award, the Ed Block Courage Award, as well as the Greater Green Bay Chamber Community Service Award. Okay, start middle linebacker at the time, and I had a pretty stellar season. I was a leader in the locker room. I didn't have any off the field things. So, if I were to sit in front of some of the personnel right now, ask them, they say, "Oh, it's because of your injury." Maybe, right? Maybe. But I'm telling you what my reality was at the time, okay? And you look at Colin Kaepernick never being able to play football again after he's one of the most talented quarterbacks to play the game during that decade. The writing's on the wall, right? So when I left the NFL, I knew that I didn't want to work for anyone again because I didn't want my happiness to be contingent on someone else's system, okay? And I wanted to create my own system that people can thrive in. So for me, and I'm not a guy, I don't necessarily create goals. I feel like the way I work and the way I organize myself, if I create a goal, it'll be putting a cap on my life. Because goals are what my mind can fathom. I want to do shit that my mind can't even fathom. You know, to like full disclosure, I just got a call Forbes. I mean, 3 years ago, would I have thought that that's something that I'd be doing? No. You get what I'm saying? Forbes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out. I was about to ask you again what you said. You said you got a call from Forbes?
Yeah, I spoke with Forbes today about doing a write-up on my career. 3 years ago, would I have planned to be doing a structure on USF's campus? 3 years ago, would I be thinking that I'm about to graduate with my master's in business after coming to USF, having to graduate with an ISS degree because my GPA wasn't low enough. And here I am about to graduate with an executive master's in business administration. So setting goals for myself, don't get me wrong. I think because success leaves clues, I think, yeah, you should set goals. But for me, I don't really set goals. The first thing I did after I left the NFL was I started a marketing company, and I had 2 clients that I maintained for about 5 months. And then I just realized the direction that Sky Limit was going in, and it was time for me to just kind of put my mind on Sky Limit and just go in that direction. And so, you know, I just shot for the sky, and, you know, my company is called Sky Limit. So, you know, we talk about how sky's the limit sometimes, but again, man, I don't necessarily make goals and plans. I just get up and I work real hard every day. And I always network. And I think I talk to a lot of young guys, and they say, I don't know how to talk to people. Well, you better learn how.
Yeah.
You better learn how. And if you can get out and you can talk to people, and you can sit in rooms and get information and digest information, then yeah, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my issues as well, was being able to open up and have these full on conversations with people. I mean, me and you have connected, you know, like you said, a decade ago. We were teammates for the longest time. And then, you know, when I hit you back up, it's like we never missed a beat. But
Exactly.
meeting new people. And one of my things still to this day, man, public speaking is like murder for me. As soon as I get up, bro, if it's jokes, I'm cool. Like, if it's making fun of stuff, I'm cool with it. But if it's actually talking about something serious, man, I almost had a panic attack at a football banquet when I was a coach one time. My players will remember this, man. I was sweating through my shirt, bro. That just wasn't my dig.
And I'll tell you what, I still struggle with public speaking sometimes. Here I am, a sports analyst, but I still struggle with it from time to time. So, you know, I just embrace it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
hey, I think we pretty much covered everything, man. One last question that I really like to ask everyone, though, is if you could go back, and I know this is something that maybe, you know, it's philosophically something that people might not want to talk about, but if you could go back in time and talk to your 16 or 18-year-old self, what would you tell him to prepare him for life, or what kind of advice would you give that person?
Wow. If I could go back to my 16-year-old self,
Invest in Tesla.
Right, and buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
My 16-year-old self, I think I'd read more. I honestly think I'd read more. And so granted, people always tell, hey man, you speak so well. I'm gonna just tell you, Jeff, I hate reading books. And so people try to basically tell you, you know, the only way you'll develop your grammar, your vernacular, and your ability to put words together is by reading. And so I never really liked reading. Even still today, I don't like reading. And so I'd read more, I'd seek more information. Because there's things that, and I'm a talented guy, there's some things that I do really well. And I think I know who I am at this juncture in my life, but I just seek more information because the more information you have, the more powerful you are. And so I think sometimes you're so busy being a kid, there just needs to be a small percentage of you that's looking, you know, read the New Street Journal. I think that's very important because you need to know what's going on in the world. And my daughter, she hates it. You know, I'm 30 years old and I'm the aggravating father now, right? And she doesn't realize, like, sweetheart, everything that's hip to you, I know about it. You get what I'm saying? Whereas like when we were young, we were doing things our parents knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I call them current events. So every week she has to turn in 2 current events to me. and she'll get the Wall Street Journal, and she has to read the Wall Street Journal and write a 5-sentence excerpt on a current event. And so it's just crazy, some of the conversations we're having. Like, she's like, did you hear about that guy in China who that? And I'm like, see, there you go. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's it. At 16, I just tell myself to seek more information, because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful sentiment to end it with, brother. I really appreciate your time, man, and keep doing your thing. Also, I wanted to give you props, man. I read an article that you pulled a tree off a 99-year-old woman's house, man, and I thought that was outstanding. That's
Yeah.
you done, man. Every news article I pull up on you, bro, I always research my guests, and sometimes they're like, "What? You research me?" But you know how it is.
You got to.
I saw your stuff, man. It's like the first like 5 news articles that pop up on Google for you are like Sam Barrington helping this person, Sam Barrington doing this for this company, Sam Barrington doing this for this community outreach. And it's like, man, I tell you what, there could not be a more shining example of what a student athlete at USF should look like. And I just want to tell you, man, I am absolutely honored and humbled that you were willing to come on my show. And I appreciate it so much, man.
I appreciate it, man. And the only reason why good things continue to happen to me in my life is because, you do stuff for other people and God returns it in tenfold. And I firmly believe that, and so, we all have a role, and the world is crazy right now. The world is crazy. So while everybody's fighting to get their agenda across, it's a silent majority of us that need to continue to carry this world by doing kind things for people and finding ways to give back and finding ways to make someone smile. And that's all it's about. So I appreciate it, Jeff, man. And I love what you're doing. And you have a new consumer. You have a new person that's going to be watching your material and keeping up with you. And yeah, man, proud of you.
Beautiful. I appreciate it, man. You have a great night.
Thank you, Jeff. You too.